miles behind him. Today was day 3 of Life 2. Whoever said that there were no second acts in American lives had never worked for the government. He hummed a few bars of Homeward Bound, but found his own voice grating and switched on the radio. The scanner locked onto a local station, and Landry listened to a live report from the county fair, followed by a community bulletin board announcing church activities, a 4-H meeting, a VFW picnic, and so forth, followed by crop and livestock prices, hot tips on where the fish were running, and an excruciatingly detailed weather report. There were tornadoes in southern Indiana. Landry shut off the radio, thinking he'd heard this very same news a quarter-century ago. But a lot had happened to him in those years, most of it dangerous. He was safe now, and alive, whereas for the past quarter-century he'd felt that he had one foot in the grave and the other on a banana peel. He smiled. Homeward bound. Sure, he admitted, he had mixed emotions, and he had to sort them out. 2 weeks ago, he was in Belgrade exchanging threats with the Minister of Defense, and today he was in Ohio listening to a twangy voice speculating about hog prices. Yes, he was safe, but not yet sound. Landry settled back in his seat and paid attention to his driving. He liked the feel of the open road and the Saab handled beautifully. The car's unusual shape attracted curious attention when Landry passed through the small towns and hamlets of western Ohio, and he thought he should probably trade it in for less of a conversation piece when he took up residence in Spencerville. The cornfields stretched as far as the deep blue sky, and here and there a farmer had planted soybeans or wheat or alfalfa. But mostly it was corn. Field corn to fatten livestock and sweet corn for the table. Corn. Corn syrup, corn starch, corn flakes, corn meal, corn, Landry thought, to fatten an already fat nation. Landry had been in a lot of famine areas over the years, so maybe that's why the sight of the heartland's bounty made him think of fat. 4 amber waves of grain, he said aloud. He noticed that the crops were good. He had no vested interest in the crops, neither as a farmer nor as a man who held crop futures. But he'd spent the first 18 years of his life listening to everyone around him talk about the crops, so he noticed them wherever he was, in Russia, in China, in Somalia, and now, coming full circle, in western Ohio. Landry saw the sign for Spencerville, downshifted, and took the turn without braking, causing the Ford Taurus behind him to try the same thing with less acceptable results. On the horizon, he could see a water storage tower and grain silos. Then later, he could make out the clock tower of the Spencer County Courthouse, a sort of Gothic Victorian pile of red brick and sandstone built in a burst of turn-of-the-century enthusiasm and boosterism. The courthouse was a marvel when it was built, Landry reflected, and it was a marvel now. The marvel being that Spencer County had once been prosperous enough and populated enough to finance such a massive edifice. As Landry drew closer, he could see most of the town's 10 church spires, catching the light of the setting sun. Landry did not enter the town, but turned off onto a small farm road. A sign reminded him to watch out for slow-moving farm vehicles, and he eased off the accelerator. Within 15 minutes, he could see the red barn of the Landry farm. He had never driven all the way home before, but had always flown to Toledo or Columbus and rented a car. This drive from the District of Columbia had been uneventful, yet interesting. The interesting part, aside from the landscape, was the fact that he didn't know why he was driving to Spencerville to live after so long an absence. Interesting, too, was the sense of unhurried leisure, the absence of any future appointments.